Welcome back to the Hyperspacepodcast. My name is Sam, and I'm joined as always by our lovely co-host Michael Ghosh. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, especially as we're getting further into this show.
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, yeah, we're going to be breaking down episode 3 of the Bad Batch, which came out on Friday, and it's getting exciting. I mean, I don't think this had necessarily the most action, and it's definitely not going to be like the most. When you think of the Bad Batch, you're not going to necessarily go back to episode 3, but it was still a good episode that I think we both agree, both enjoyed. Let's start breaking it down. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about let's go chronological order. So at the start, you I know you want to talk about an Easter egg early on. So
Right, yeah.
Michael, talk us through this very early on Easter egg,
Right.
which is barely an Easter egg, but I love your thinking anyway.
Well, when I was watching, we see Hunter pulls out a box of rations, and for some reason I immediately thought of the scene in episode 5, in the Empire Strikes Back, where Luke has his like ration pack, and then Yoda comes and like starts stealing stuff out of it and hits R2 with the stick. I don't know why, but I don't know. I think it's because also the food's in those little cylinders. Like they're
Mm.
just eating these cylinders, and you're like, what is this? And you know, how is like Wrecker okay with like how can he just eat one and that's supposed to like do him for the day? Yeah, it was just I don't know. It was a very small Easter egg, but there was quite a few small things in this episode as the plot was quite slow.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, talking about Wrecker, I think it's fair to say that after people have watched this episode, he has been a really big talking point because one of the things that happened early on, they have a crash landing and land on this moon. Wrecker hurts his head in the crash landing, and throughout the episode, he's talking about how much his head hurts, and I think that's kind of implying that I think his chip might be activating and Tech, who was working on a scanner before the crash landing, really needs to get it working. As Rekko, I think, is becoming a fan favorite character because he's so nice despite having this like hard interior or exterior, sorry. That he's becoming a fan favorite. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think his chip is activating or what's
I
going on?
think. Well, we'll talk about. We'll just go back to what you were saying about Wrecker. You don't know. I don't know if this is a good comparison. But he kind of reminds me of Korg. You know, like he's quite this. He's like this big guy, but he's just got this like heart of gold, and he is like quite a big personality. He's got a big voice, but he's just the softest person on the inside. Like he wanted was Omega offered his like her ration to him, and then Hunter says, "Oh well, we basically taken she has like nothing," and he's like, "No, I don't want it." And like this is a big guy who'd probably want to eat it, but like you can kind of see like he's this sort of like I guess dumb big brother to her now, and I think
Mm.
that's what this. I think this is what this episode did is like make Wrecker have a relationship with Omega. Whereas like last episode, I think it was all about Hunter being this kind of like father figure to her, whereas
Mm.
Wrecker's this kind of big dumb brother. Yeah, and I also thought about this because he'd said, "Oh, must have hit it in the crash," and I was thinking the same thing. Is this to do with the chip? Maybe the like head injury. Like he might. I'm pretty sure he hits his head in the crash, right? Because he like does remark on it. But I was wondering if this is chip related. And we see was it Tech was trying to develop a scanner for it. So do you think they're going to try and remove the chips maybe, or if they're just going to see if they work?
Yeah, I think they'll use the scanner to see how active each one's chips are, and I think they'll find out that Wreckers has been activated, and they'll find a way that they can like deactivate it. And I think that the way when they find out how to do that, because they can't turn Wrecker against Omega. I mean that would be so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, I think they're going to need to remove Wrecker's chip, and then when they find out how to do that, I think they'll try and find Crosshair, and I think they'll try and remove his, and I think that's what's going to be the themes that are built up around the series now.
Well, we can talk about we had a few moments, just after the crash landing where Tarkin's there watching Crosshair undergo a procedure, and we don't know what this is, but I would imagine it's again similar to what we talked about earlier. It's to do with the chip, and I was wondering whether they've again like further enhanced its like potency, or if they've actually just taken it out and replaced the chip. I don't know if they can do that, but I think they've definitely done something to further alter his behavior, because his behavior is again different to it was last time, because last time he still had his personality. Now he's like completely devoid of his personality and his individuality,
Yeah, and
more or less.
he's basically becoming a reg with special abilities because of that personality is getting taken away from him. Yeah, it's. I thought it was really interesting because we begin to see this on Camino. We see Grand Moff Tarkin and Vice Admiral Rampart overseeing like the change from clones to stormtroopers, and I think we're going to get more of that as the season goes on. And it's a period I've always been really interested in because I've always wanted to see this change made because clones are definitely more effective than stormtroopers. They just can't produce as many clones, but you got to ask yourself: do you want quality or do you want quantity? And the Empire clearly, as we all know, went for quantity. What are your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the change and the beginning of the change to stormtroopers?
I think you raised the point I think everyone has, which is the clones are superior in every imaginable way. Yes, they're not necessarily as loyal as like conscripts, but the thing with the conscript is the ones that they had there were the like specially chosen conscripts who are going to be the ones who are going to want to like fight for the empire now. But not every recruit will be made equal. Whereas the clones, although they won't be entirely loyal necessarily, and they do have some individuality, as a whole, there is like no shadow of a doubt of their loyalty or the ability to program their loyalty to the empire. And I think also you're saying about the empire goes for more. I think also the empire is fighting it isn't fighting, but it's like the military it's building up is very different to the republic because of the nature of what they're doing, because they're basically trying to maintain the space the republic took up and the Confederacy of Independent Systems took up. So they're trying to take up they basically have taken most of the separatist worlds and the republic worlds. It's not so much an issue of they need to fight individual planets or like an entire galactic war. It's they need to maintain those planets, and I think that's more so what the issue is. And I think some of the arguments Tarkin makes about or was making about the clones not being effective enough is not really the issue at hand. It's more the empire needs to be maintaining these planets, and the clones are just not well equipped for that, or because of they're designed to be fighting a war, not like small scale insurgency, on a world to world basis, which isn't that widespread at the moment. I think again when it ends up with the Galactic Civil War, where the rebels are fighting the Empire, the clones would have been the better. That's when you really think, clones would have been better. But the other thing with the Empire is they're thinking long term. Clones die sooner as well, or like their usefulness ends much sooner. Like they won't be able to be in service as long as stormtroopers. But yeah, it's I think it was interesting that we see this transition though in this episode, because we kind of understand a bit more why Tarkin is anti-clone again, I still don't understand why he's anti-clone in the Clone Wars, but now like it makes sense with the Empire, despite the facts as we know stormtroopers just aren't the same quality.
Yeah, no, I think you've definitely raised some great points there. That at this point in the war, because it's effectively over, and it's more of just keeping planets in order instead of fighting a war. That the stormtroopers definitely would be more effective than the clones, as clones are more suited to like a big war situation. I think completely. And moving on to, I think we should keep with this narrative about the clones. And the 4 elite soldiers get sent on a mission to Onderon, where they try and do what the Bad Batch couldn't and kill the insurgents. And they're led by Crosshair. And on the way, one of the stormtroopers getting cocky, says he's going to replace Crosshair. You know from the start, Crosshair doesn't like him. I knew straight away he was not making it back to Camino alive. I knew at one point Crosshair was just going to shoot him, and that happened. But it was weird because I was like him at first. Oh, I don't like this guy. He's cocky. But then he was the one when they got to Onderon that stood up and said, no, this isn't right. You know, why these people haven't done anything, they're innocent. And he tries to get the other elite soldiers to leave before Crosshair basically said that they've been given orders. They have to kill them or they'll break these orders. And then Crosshair kills him, which was unsurprising because Crosshair just didn't like him. But yeah, it's interesting that you see even the stormtroopers, not just the clones, have this moral balance where they're like, yeah, we've killed these people who are supposedly insurgents, but there are these innocent people, and we shouldn't be killing them. We should be, if we're going to do anything, we should capture them. These people have done nothing wrong. They've just ended up in a war. They didn't try and end up in here. They just wanted safe passage off the planet.
I think this again in the scene before they had briefly mentioned about the chain code, which I think I talked about last time, and we kind of see the Empire's really trying to get a hand on the situation they're in, which is they effectively overthrew a government. Whether or not that's legal doesn't matter. They've overthrown the legality doesn't really matter. They've effectively overthrown a government and completely replaced the system in which it worked. Like the Senate still exists because I think it's talked about in the Ahsoka book, and I think it's talked about in Rebels that they're senators, but it's not. Everyone knows it's not going to work the same, and the government has changed, and it's in this precarious situation where it's transitioning, and like when we talked about the chain codes, I was thinking this is all sort of leading up to things like the ISB. You know, they're basically the Imperial Secret Police, right? And it again, like you said, the recruits are human at the end of the day and have like a moral compass. I think the only reason why they did it was because they haven't got the like the clones probably would have stood up to Crosshair. But because they're like just not they're regular soldiers, they're like scared of death basically, and they wouldn't just stand up to it, which is why they go and like shoot them. And you actually hear the flamethrower going off in the background as well, which is horrifying.
Yeah, no,
Like,
you're completely right. I mean, the vibes I'm getting from, they were in episode 3, and this feels darker than the original Clone Wars. Like
yeah,
the Clone Wars was underrated in how dark and how like brutal it was, but in the first 3 we've seen Caleb Dune's master get murdered, and that like the scream she let off when she died was horrifying. We've seen innocent people off screen. It's been inferred that innocent people have just been executed on the spot, and like
it wasn't even that far off screen either. It wasn't even that far off screen. They literally, I believe it was a shot of the side of the shuttle, right? And you can hear it. Also, it was something like that where it was literally just off camera. It wasn't like it was said it happened. You like hear it happen, which I think, to be honest, is actually more horrifying than seeing it, because you imagine it and what it was like. And I think again, it's like we know this is exactly what Tarkin wants. And I think it's actually quite good for like his character development, because he's this character who we really all quite know well, but he's missing in these gaps in this period, as are many of the characters. And it's like you said, this is one of the best eras, but one we've not heard anything about. And it's one that
Yeah,
I think us, the fans, have been craving. Not even since season 7, but since the like Clone Wars finished. When back when we were all trying to see what was gonna happen, we were all curious about not only how did it end, but what happened to the clones the minute like Order 66 was over, and in the lead on to the transition of power. And we knew a few bits, like there's the outer rim sieges where they're still fighting like separatists who didn't surrender and weren't at that meeting on Mustafar, smaller separatist worlds. But more or less, the Clone Wars is over. And even that, we don't see anything about the separatist sieges, the outer rim sieges, which is what I thought we were going to see in this show a bit more. But now we've seen that the Bad Batch, I guess, desert far earlier than I thought was going to happen, because I thought it was going to happen, episode, like it probably happened on this episode, when we had originally been talking about this being this, was it 12 episode? No, 16 episode show.
yeah,
I thought they were going to keep with the Empire a bit longer, and I think I'm glad that they did that first episode as an hour, because I think otherwise it would have been too fast.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts about this period though.
Yeah, completely. I'm going back to the Bad Batch after their crash landing. They're looking to fix the ship, but their part is stolen by an Ordo Moondragon. And it really starts, despite I think there's definitely themes of this family being built between the Bad Batch and Omega, with this one having definitely bits where Wrecker is the big brother who's a bit of an idiot, bit dopey. It does also have a lot with Omega and
Hunter.
Hunter. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I was about to go on. I was about to say there's this again, this father figure relationships built on in this episode, isn't there?
Yeah, no, completely. And yeah, I mean, Hunter almost dies. There's a
Yeah.
bit where he goes out there trying to he goes with Omega to get the part back, and yeah, Hunter almost dies. It made me think of this, because there's a saying in this Clone Wars that that they will never leave a brother behind. And you see Hunter, who's just like kind of almost died. Omega puts the oxygen thing back on him, but she kind of just leaves him. He could have
Mm.
been like, I know he was always going to come around, but she just, I just find it funny, because the saying is always never leave a brother behind, and she just ran off without him to get the part. I know it's trying to complete the mission, and she
Yeah.
wants to do him proud by retrieving the missing part, which she does. But I just find it funny that she just complete this saying she just hasn't come to terms with, and she just leaves him behind.
I think I was gonna say to defend Omega, she does hear him breathing, to be fair. Like
Mm,
I was thinking this when I was rewatching it. I was like, yeah, she does just leave him, doesn't she? But to be fair, it's not like she goes that far away from him or whatever, and I guess there isn't any immediate danger. But yeah, it is kind of weird that she like separates from him, like where he's like almost died. But you do hear him breathe, so I'm like you hear the mask works because he starts breathing, although not very much.
yeah, but what I think is
Yeah,
Omega's just left him, and fair enough, she hears him breathing, but he doesn't come around for like a
no,
1 or 2, like a few minutes,
minutes.
or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, around that. And if there was like another Ordo Moondragon, he could literally
He
come
would
and
have been
just
dead.
eat him. Exactly.
Yeah,
I know they
yeah.
feed on like electrical things,
Energy.
but if there was
Yeah.
another creature there, then he could have literally just been eaten up because he was unconscious.
I guess the other problem was she tried to call for like Echo and Tech, but they didn't respond. So I don't know whether that was part of her motivation. But yeah, it was a bit strange that she didn't just stick with him. But I guess the other thing is that she realized that this could be worse for everyone else if she hadn't gone and completed the mission. I don't know. Yeah, it was like you said though, they really don't leave a brother behind. Like was it Rex feels such guilt towards Echo, because he doesn't think Echo is dead, and the fact that they never got to go back for him. We even see it with Hunter in the scene, like the scene literally before this, where he's like so guilty about the fact he left behind Crosshair. Although to be fair, in his defense, none of them, he didn't know it was to do with the chip, and he just thought Crosshair fully betrayed him, because I know that there's an element where the chip plays into it, but there's like, you see it with Rex where he's fully like 100% shaking, trying to shoot Ahsoka. And so it's not unusual for it, like and also Rex is a regular, like he's a reg, and he like basically stopped. He's the only reason Ahsoka survives by a long way. The fact he hesitates, because if he had shot, he would have killed her 100%. And I think we don't see that in Crosshair because that's not his personality. And so to some degree, I have sympathy, like, yeah, but also it makes sense why they would leave him behind, because it wasn't just Chip's behavior that affects it, but it's always hard to tell, I guess, because it's a case by case with the chips, isn't it? Because there's a lot of other examples where the chip, like, was it with like Tut? He does just go and like walk up and shoot her in the back.
Yeah.
Which is like the first instance of it happening. And most of them do just walk up and shoot them. They're Jedi. So I guess especially Rex is a complete like outlier, but still.
Yeah, no, completely. Like towards the end of the episode, talk about Crosshair. You do see when he gets back and he goes to his to where he's based, his bed, and you see his markings on the wall where he tallies off the kills, and he doesn't tally these kills after he's just killed these people, and he's sitting there, and you can see in this moment of reflection there is a part of him that does miss his brothers and the Bad Batch, and there's definitely a part of him that's against it, but the chip is too strong at the moment. So it makes you think, will it be him just turning against the chip? Will he have that strong mental mindset, or will they remove the chip? Because he definitely has a redemption arc coming up.
He's going to have it. I think it's a lot further down the line. I think we talked about last time, and I'm speculating based on a Lego set, which is not always good, but like the fact that he's like in that set chasing the like on another bike on that desert planet where we see Rex, that's my theory is that's where it's going to happen. When we get to that desert planet, we're going to see Rex, possibly even Ahsoka. You never know. Although I'm pretty sure canonically at the moment they are not supposed to meet until Rebels, basically, again, because they do like discuss how long it's been. And I think anyway, I think that's where it'll go down, and he'll go and try and kill the Bad Batch, and that's probably where he'll get his redemption arc. So it's probably it's definitely like towards the end of the, at least the mid part of the series. I see that being in episode 8, 9, 10 onwards, rather than the immediate future, where there might be a few episodes where he's like getting close to them, but I don't think they'll have a direct confrontation, or if they do, it won't be that drawn out because of like how Crosshair works.
Yeah, no, completely.
But I guess it depends on when like Tech gets the scanner working as well, because like you said, we have this possible arc where Wrecker is gonna like have the chip either start working, or it's gonna become to the point where they're worried it will start working, and he will like try and hunt down the Bad Batch for like not following orders. Yeah, it's again, Crosshair has this I think he has this redemption arc, and he will possibly have it, although I wonder if it'd be more interesting if one of the Bad Batch have to kill him.
Yeah.
And if that would be far more useful character development. I don't know, but either I think we'd like enjoy it either way, but I do wonder like if that would be like is also in the possible like realm of possibilities where Hunter may just have to kill Crosshair, and maybe in a situation where he has a choice between Crosshair or Omega, he will choose it. He will 100% choose Omega. I think any of them will, even if they want to pick Crosshair, they won't. So I think we'll see what happens, but I also think that that's a possibility where one of the Hunter especially may have to kill Crosshair. Just it'd be something that's going to be really hard for him to do as well, but I think he won't hesitate to do it.
Yeah,
if he
completely.
has to.
Yeah, talking about Crosshair, something that was brought to. Well, I came across this on TikTok, relating to Crosshair, and it just made me think like Dave Filoni is just such a genius because in the last season, going back to the last season of Clone Wars, season 7, they introduced the Bad Batch, and they knew that they were going to bring in a show. Dave Filoni knew this was happening, and he definitely was thinking of some ideas for the show. And in season 7, episode 3, where they're like rescuing Echo, there's a bit where they get to this corridor where they can either go left or right, and everyone goes left apart from Crosshair and Anakin, and that is like incredible
Yeah,
foreshadowing for Crosshair and Anakin's turn, and it just makes you think Dave Filoni has definitely thought that through, and it's just
yeah.
so like genius. It's so clever.
It's again, Dave Filoni. We know he's thinking things like 10 steps before they happen. Especially with the Clone Wars. I think they already had. I think they had some idea. No, they did have. I'm pretty sure Disney did have some idea of how it was going to end. They knew it was going to happen on Mandalore. We were talking about Ahsoka and Rex. They knew that was going to happen on Mandalore, and they knew that Darth Maul was going to be there, and Ahsoka would have to face Darth Maul. Again, because it was in the Ahsoka book, I'd imagine Dave Filoni had some influence on that. Although that's been semi-retconned. I was going to say, it's like with a lot of things. Disney, recently Marvel TV shows before Disney Plus have been decanonized. God, we're so lucky as Star Wars fans that they didn't do that to Clone Wars. But I think if that happened, there'd be such a huge backlash.
Yeah. 100%.
Like it would be insane. Like anyways, I don't know why you bother retconning it. It's probably the only thing that keeps the fan base united. That and Baby Yoda.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. But yeah, no,
Oh,
it was so clever.
yeah.
The last thing in the episode was Wrecker makes Omega a bed, which really kind of it was such a lovely moment with reinforcing the older brother. You know, he's really liking Omega and just looking after. Before that, Omega literally didn't have a bed or was sleeping on the floor, and I'm pretty sure they said had never had a bed before. So it
She's
was really
never
nice
had a
for
room
Wrecker.
before. Yeah.
Exactly, and it was really nice for
Yeah.
Wrecker to make her that bed.
I think like with this episode, a lot of the best scenes were these really small, like 2-3 minute scenes where there was this character development. Either this scene or the scene with like Hunter, like after she goes and gets the parts, or even some of any of the scenes Tarkin's in are amazing. Like when he like remarks on the fact one of the troopers didn't make it back, and then the other guy at Rampart just says, well, they know the cost of war, there's going to be casualties, as if it's like nothing, and they don't question it. And I think I wonder if they knew Crosshair had shot him, because they would have sent a probe droid like they had with the Bad Batch. And I don't know if they would have, but I imagine they must have. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just think it's really interesting because, was it Tarkin says the clone trooper program is a cost prohibitive relic of the past. And I think that kind of like really summarizes his opinion of it. And like the fact they're literally just doing it to wait for conscripts is something we're all not sure about how that was working, and now we know, and there is a definitive answer. Yes, they did keep producing them. We got a few other small Easter eggs, like the Kaminoans making a new clone.
Yeah, no,
a secret kind of clone.
That was an interesting one, because I think I was going to mention, it looks like they're building up for, because it's happened before in games where the Kaminoans have, because they see they're getting rid of the clones, they've made a new breed of clones to kind of rebel, and then they have this massive battle on Kamino, and I would love to see that. And I know in like the game they get Boba Fett to fight against them, and if that would be so sick if we have that. I don't think it'll happen, but I think there will definitely be a fight on Kamino.
I want, yeah, it does. They discussed they need about Jango Fett's DNA degrading, and so I put a note down because I was wondering maybe that they need a clone, and probably one of the more original ones before the DNA starts degrading, And I was wondering if that means Boba Fett will show up in the Bad Batch as this template for the rest of the military, because he's an unaltered clone as well. None of his behavior has changed. He's basically he's as close as you can get to having Jango Fett's DNA.
Mm. But
Because
without
I'm
an
sure there's
inhibitor chip.
yeah, and he won't have the inhibitor chip. So it's I wonder if they're going to bring him into this show, and he'll be he'll be a similar age he was in the last time we saw him, probably, which was Felucia, where he kills the hostages. I think that was the last time we saw him. I could be wrong, but I think that was the last time we saw him. So that would be an interesting thing to see him now, and him reacting to the clones now would be fascinating. Although I don't think he actually liked the clones, to be honest, that much from his behavior before. So I don't know if he'd care. I don't think it's the same with Jango, where he's actually quite proud of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was a very similar episode to the season 2 of The Mandalorian, The Passenger. Bar the stuff that was happening on Kamino and the cutaways to the new stormtroopers getting their first test. The arc with the actual Bad Batch was very similar to the Frog Lady, and where they crash land, and then there were the spider creatures, which I hated, and it was very similar to that, but with like the few cutaways to the to Kamino.
Okay, I'm gonna state my controversial and strong opinion, which is this episode did that better than I think this was better than The Passenger, and I think The Passenger was good, but it was so slow and it didn't. It was don't get me wrong, it was an amazing episode, but when we're comparing them, I think this just had those like you said, all the stuff from Kamino. It had all this other, I guess you like, plot interest stuff that broke up the slowness of the Bad Batch's own like episode, if that makes sense. The actual parts of the Bad Batch was slow, and it was meant to be slow, and the show needed the pacing to slow down after the last 2 episodes. I thought this would be I think I might have said it last week. I thought this was going to be a slower episode. Like last week was a slow episode, and again they are slowing down the pace or keeping it slow because it allows them to build up again. But I think it just did it better because it had these nice, I think we talked about the 2-3 moments with Omega, and well, yes, the Mando had these with Baby Yoda. Basically, it's not the same. I think that both Mando and the Bad Batch as characters kind of suffer from the same thing, which is they're somewhat one-dimensional characters. Like Wreck is this big, dumb, like strong guy, and then Tex is genius, and Echo is like somewhat in between all of them. He's like he's kind of the jack of all trades, but mainly he's also like Tech, kind of. He's somewhat like Tech, but not the same. And then Hunter's just Rambo, basically. Like he's like, no, he is Rambo. He's 100% Rambo. And I guess Omega is like the kid who's never experienced the world. And so like they're all somewhat one-dimensional characters. And the Mando is basically just Clint Eastwood. Well, he's basically the Man with No Name from the Man with No Name trilogy with Clint Eastwood, where he's this guy who will just do anything for the money, or did just do anything for the money, but he's kind of a good guy. More so now, but I mean, originally in the first few episodes, it is very much like that. And I think the difference is that while the Mando got some depth from Baby Yoda and he's like this sort of father figure, I think they are able to do it more with this because Omega talks and she's able to do actually help them and be of use. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think I did like The Passenger, and it had good parts of it. And Dave Filoni was in it. But I don't know. I just think this episode was able to do it more because there was other stuff going on in the galaxy that we were interested in, and then there was this, I guess, the main plot was the Bad Batch, but it was because they were able to complement each other. It was never felt. We thought it might have been filler, but we never felt like it was filler, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can tell it's filler, but it doesn't feel like it. Whereas The Passenger felt more like filler because it kind of completely changed the mission of the Mandalorian, he like completely goes off his main mission, which is to basically get Baby Yoda to the Jedi, and he's like completely like, oh, you need to do this one thing to find this information. Whereas I think the Bad Batch isn't taking that direction as much, which I think we thought it might. I think you said you thought it might end up being like that, where he's constantly directed to these planets to find Rex, but so far that's not happened. And while I don't mind if that does happen, you don't want that for an entire show. Like it's fine in the Mando because they have enough stuff going on, but it's certainly an animated show where we're interested in the period specifically. Whereas with the Mando, I guess we're less interested in what the Empire's like after Endor. We're not as so much invested in that era because we don't know we don't really care about what happens afterwards, to be honest. As much as we don't. As much as we try and say good things about the sequels as a whole, we know we don't. I don't think either of us enjoy them as much as we'd like to have enjoyed them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, everything always relates back to the sequels.
It does.
But yeah, I agree that this was better than The Passenger. However, as you said, this episode didn't have Dave Filoni in a TIE fighter shooting his A280C at a bunch of massive spiders. I mean, that is an elite part of that episode.
I think that's the only.
And it missed out in this episode.
Well, we could have had it. That would have been kind of amazing. But I think that's the one thing that I would say about that episode. Dave Filoni being in it was amazing. But yeah, this episode definitely did that sort of stuck on a planet, ship's broken better. And when I initially saw the ship was broken, I'm like, oh no, here we go again. Sam's predicted the Mandalorian season 3 set in the Clone Wars, the aftermath of the Clone Wars, basically. But no, it was good, and I think the Mandalorian maybe we're allowed we give it space because it's live action, so it's different. It's able to do things slower with that, and it's not in the period where like that. I think the investment in the period and what's going on Kamino means we need that. And I think that's why this episode did it better. It didn't necessarily do being stuck on a planet better, although it did. It's mainly about the stuff that was going on Kamino and the relationship between Omega and like the squad. Like you were saying, that scene with the bed, like such a small scene, but it adds a lot to like Wrecker. I know like I know we kind of know he's like kind of he's like this nice guy, but like, and he like likes Omega, but now we actually like see the actions of that. Because if he just like, when he just like protects Omega, we're like, well, it's just Wrecker, isn't it? But, like the fact he does like something like this, which is like kind of outside what he'd normally do, is like quite touching, to be honest. Like for this just big dumb idiot brother to do.
Yeah, no, completely. I think that wraps up most of what we want to talk about, unless you have any other Easter eggs, or is that you done?
No, that's me done.
That's you done. Well, yeah, that wraps up our breakdown and Easter eggs of the Bad Batch episode 3, and good episode. Can't wait to see what's coming, and it's got a lot of promise. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.